All right, good morning. Welcome back here to Trader Minute. Great to have you aboard. I hope you had a fantastic weekend. Market off to a fairly bullish start here this morning. We're looking at an S&P that's up up about 20 points here, so 0.67%, and pushing into a new all-time high. You think about the market over the last 6 months and all the various fears and worries and concerns and all of that kind of stuff. And, we're looking at a market that's sitting at an all time high. No coincidence that that's happening during an earnings season. And during an earnings season where the numbers are fantastic. They're not good, right? They're not good. They're fantastic relative to what the fears were going into the earnings season. And yeah, we're talking about earnings decline for what, third quarter in a row? Right? The last time we saw an earnings decline like this, and I'll show it a little bit more this afternoon, but the last time we saw an earnings decline that shaped up this way was back here in 2015 and 2016. And you can see how much the market kind of chopped during that area or during that period and what transpired afterwards. And, we've seen something very similar in terms of the earnings. And we're seeing, when it comes to the earnings, we're seeing earnings contraction. But when it comes to the revenue, we're seeing revenue growth and revenue beats, and beats that are bigger than the market expected. And I think that is very significant. We are also seeing the revenue weakness or earnings weakness, better said, more in multinational companies than in U.S. domestic companies, and so that is something that we tend to see. Give a little bit of a spark to the markets, but we've kind of just seen this slow motion breakout here from the market, from the S&P, and it hasn't been boom all of a sudden go. There's been about four really good days of gains, over the last month. And, the rest of the day is just, not a whole lot. And that's very typical of a market going and pushing into new highs here. And so anyway, that's what we have going on. If you're looking for a technical breakout target, you're taking a look at 3,230, somewhere in that area on the S&P. If you're into that kind of stuff. But let's go take a look at the challenge. We have some stuff to do here for it. Micron here is trading at 48.47. All right, 48.47. If we come and we look at our trade data, we are above our initial price target, right? And so typically, what's the move here? Well, typically you pull 40% of the trade out and, run with the rest, readjust the stock exit level, profit target level with the ATR method, and go. Right now, with 6 contracts, if I pull 2, all right, we're close to 40%, 33% there. But I'm dealing with an option right now that's worth, let's go take a look, that's worth $4, right? And so my delta here on it's not very good. If I pull 2 contracts off, I'm just looking at a delta that's not the greatest. So what I'm looking to do is pull the entire trade off and then go and add the 48 and a halves for the 29th of November. All right, so let's go do it. Okay, and I'll show you the adjustments. And what we're going to do is adjust the dollar amounts. If this is your first time, with us being involved in one of these, it's a simple process, but it is one where we just have to adjust a lot of the numbers here. Okay, so let's go do it. Let's start by selling the Micron that we have, and let's come in here, create a closing order, and let's see. We have a bid ask 4 and 410. Let's see if we can get greedy. Come on, 405. That greedy enough? 405. Come on, fill me. It filled me. All right. Greed is good, right? Okay, 405 out of Micron. Not bad. 184 entry price out at 405. So 405 here. And that means we pulled 2,400 out of it. Definitely a nice trade for the challenge, putting us back into the, putting us into the green here for the first time, which is nice to see. Now, we pulled 2,400 out, and this is a trade where we pulled that kind of 500 out last week, just because I put a little more than what was normal for the challenge, just because of where the challenge was. But we're going to go and put about 60% of what we just pulled out, so about 1,600 back into the trade here, and so let's go do it. Let me make sure the trade alert went out, and all right, I'm getting a thumbs up. Thanks. And let's go create a new trade here with Micron, and we're going to do the 29th of November, and I'm looking at the 48.5s, and again I want to put about 1,600 in, so looking at 8 contracts here, and we are good to go. So market order filled at 203, so I probably would have gotten better on a limit order, but not too concerned there. Option ticker Micron, and 203 fill price on 8 contracts. Okay, so 8 contracts, and these are the 29th of November. Okay, 29th of November, 48.50 calls. Okay, all right. Make sure that alert goes out, and we'll update the spreadsheet. And so that leaves us with plenty of cash for another trade, and ready to roll. Now, how do we adjust this? All right, let's go take a look. Basically, we're going to take what the current stock entry price is right now. So the price of the stock right here on the trade is 48.51. Okay, we're just going to set this up like a brand new trade. Okay, 48.51. We're going to readjust our average true range here, and let's get that in here. Our average true range is 147. All right, so we're going to adjust that. You'll notice that our average true range has shrunk a little bit. So that's going to give us a new exit target of 47.04. So essentially, what have we done? We've taken some profit. We've rolled up the stop. Right. We've also acquired a new profit target, and ready to roll here with this. Now we're gonna set up the auto exit dates. We're gonna readjust it to 3 days from today, and then 6 days on the green side. So this will be the 31st. So Halloween and 31st, and now this will be an AM thing. Which we haven't had. I think this is our first AM, so good deal. And then that's going to take our green stop into November, and we are looking at November 1 to the 5th, right? So 11:05 a.m. and going. All right. There we go. And I'm just going to put a quick note in here that, this trade is just an adjustment of original Micron trade after hitting price target. Okay. So that's it. Market vibe here is 7 and bullish. Okay, on this. And then let's go take a look at our new delta, gamma, theta, vega, rho, and all of that. We have a delta of 420, a theta of 24, so 420. And we did what I want to do with this, and we basically reset the delta, back. And here we are with the delta. Our original position was 435 on the trade delta. We now have it at 420, so we're about that same level here on the trade delta and running. And again, I'll adjust the formatting here a little bit later. Okay. Alrighty. So Micron adjusted, Micron off and rolling. We know our parameters, and good to go. So this leaves us with 1,600 into a trade, which leaves us about 1,900 in cash, I believe. Let me check the exact number here. Yeah, 1936 cash available, so plenty of cash available for another trade. So let's go to our entry triggers. We had Visa here on Friday, which we could go and enter. I have 2 periods to go and enter it. I took a look at it this morning, where the options opened up and everything else, and if we come in and just pull it up here, let me show it to you here. You can see the spreads are still pretty high. Here this morning, they have not, really come down all that much with some of these weeklies, right? I could come out to the 20th of December, but then the delta is pretty low, relative to, relative to the to the dollar amount on the trade, right? But you can see the options here for Visa relative to where they were at this same time on Friday. They're about the same, right? There's not a big difference. We did see the stock go down a little bit into the close, and then even with the stock up a buck, we're not seeing the options really appreciate tremendously, at least the options that, are on the board potentially for the challenge. So I'm going to wait till the close, kind of see how things shape up here. I do think there's some pullback risk here today. So, do want to see how that all shapes up, and, we'll make a decision here this afternoon. Now, as far as any new trades on the board or signals on the board, there are not. We do have some crossovers that are happening out there. We have Pepsi and Whirlpool on the downside. Now, this is a little bit different than what we had just a bit ago. We had GOLD, but wasn't a challenge trigger to the downside. But we are seeing, it pop back here today. But Pepsi with the downside 3-7 cross, no signal on it here, right, as it sits. And then Whirlpool, which is interesting. Most days that we've seen the market up a little bit, we've seen the home builders, the Lennars and the KB Homes and the Whirlpools, they've all been up. And this morning we see them all down, but coming off a new high, no bearish signal there for Whirlpool. Now on the upside scan here, you can see we have Comcast, Disney, Netflix, and AT&T. Wow, Disney and Netflix, aren't they competitors? But I'll shut up about that one. We have AT&T off the back of some pretty good numbers. We have Disney here. Now, Disney is one that we have seen upside, upside crossovers continue to happen. The consolidation risk component on it has just been very high. Now, the consolidation risk component on it is dropping, right? So we could see a signal come into this here, but as it sits, no. And then Netflix, this is one with an upside 3-7 crossover here today, and I'm very interested to see this. I think this is one where if it weren't the morning, we'd see a bullish signal on it. So very interested to see how this kind of shapes up right here. And, do we have enough cash to trade it for the challenge? Right here, we have $1,900 in cash. Normally with the start of a challenge, we're not going to have enough to trade something like in Netflix. But we have enough to come out and trade it. Right, and so if it gets a signal, I may have to adjust which option based on the pricing of the option to maximize it. But we do have enough to go out and trade Netflix thanks to the recent drops in Netflix and a little bit of pop here in the challenge. So that's where things sit. Here I'll show you Comcast, but nothing really to see there. It's this one that's just kind of been mired in this consolidation, big reversal the other day, but has been kind of snapping back here ever since. All right. So anyway, that's the challenge, Micron adjustment, and going to take a look at Visa here this afternoon, as well as where some of the signals are, and go out and trade them accordingly. All right. Two things I want to go take a look at before I jump off video. Vale and Chipotle Mexican Grill was asked this weekend about price targets on both of these. And so let's go take a look at them. Chipotle Mexican Grill, this is not something that is triggered bearish for the challenge or has not been an active challenge trigger, where Vale has. But Chipotle, I'm bullish on it. I do like the earnings, but the comparables are tough going forward, right? And, I've mentioned after the earnings, look, this is just something that could easily drift down to the 200-day moving average, could overreact a little bit. It's not something I'm going to jump in right here, but, man, I'm loving the pullback. And, I look at it down 2% today, and I go, okay, keep going. Keep on going, keep on trucking. But, as far as pullback targets, right, pullback targets are very ambiguous. They're something that I'd rather look for a sign that buyers are starting to step in rather than go, well, you know what, at this level or that level. Now, from an investor standpoint, a little bit different, but from a trade standpoint, for me, Chipotle, I don't know, 760, 720, 620, right? 520, I don't know. We can make arguments based on different charts of any of those price levels coming into play. We could also make an argument that none of them come into play. So to me, it's kind of a frivolous exercise. But what I expect, right, is I expect something like this back here in May. And we never see things play out, the same way. But I expect we have some drop, right? We have some fade. And once we start to see the stock break above the highs from the prior day, then I'm interested, right? And Chipotle does well with this on its pullbacks. If you look at this pullback right back here in December, right? The first day that it moved above the high or closed above the high of the prior day, the pullback was over, right? The pullback was over. Now, right here, we saw kind of this double fake out with that, right? But ultimately, if you had a couple days patience, right, you're golden. So, it's not, oh, well, I get a close above the high of the prior day, I'm getting in, absolutely go. But it's one where, all right, that's where I start to get interested. That's where I start to pay closer attention. Until then, yeah, it's on my watch list. I'll watch it. But I'm not really interested in getting in. But once we start to see the stock close above the high from the prior day, then I'm interested. And, then I'm more interested in going and analyzing it and saying, well, okay, you know what, this is a level I like, or, the options are this, that, and the other, and really starting to, to go through it to a different degree there. All right. So that's Chipotle. Now, the other one here is Vale. Now, Vale was a challenge trigger, and this is one where we saw it trigger on the 22nd. And one that, stock has moved up nicely, right? The 22nd, we have right here on this action right in here. And, the stock has had some nice follow through. Now, if you're looking for a price target in terms of the challenge, right, and what the challenge price target would be, you could just slap this ATR method on, right? So what would that be? Well, let's go through it, right? Let's go through it here. It triggered on the 22nd, right? And look, we can use just the closing price, right? You don't have to use, well, what was the price at, an hour, 90 minutes before the market closed. You just use the close price. It's not going to make a huge difference there. But here on the 22nd, right here, let's see. My apologies. Let me get that, make sure I have this right. Okay, here on the 22nd, we have, do I have it lined up correctly? No, there we go. All right, we have a close of 11.57, right? 11.57 is the closing price here on the 22nd, right? So what's the ATR at that point? Well, it's 29, right? So let's just say 30 cents, just for easy math right here. But we have 11.57. And we have a 30-cent ATR. So two ATRs are going to be 60 cents higher. So 11.57 plus 60 cents, right, is 12.17. Hopefully my math is right, but 12.17. And so, boom, Vale has hit the first price target for the challenge. So had we had traded Vale, had we had the cash to trade it, right? What would I be doing this morning? Well, same thing I did with Micron, right? Same thing I did with Micron, and looking to pull 40% off and continue to run here with the rest. Now, it doesn't mean the stock has to go higher or has to make the next 2 ATR move. In fact, the odds of a secondary 2 ATR move diminish, right? They diminish. We've talked about that before, but they're still plenty good enough to to be in the trade, to have it adjusted, to adjust the stop and continue to run, and get that additional payoff there. So that's where how I would look at it, and from just a pure stock watcher chart standpoint, outside of the algorithm, where would I look for it to be? Well, very easy. You take a look at the bottom here. You have this nice surge, right? Then you get the higher low. And so you take a look at this pullback. This pullback was about $1.40, right? And so if you just kind of do some very clean, very symmetrical, technical price targeting, you're looking at 1360 as the price target, basically $1.40 over this short-term high. And, rarely does it play out exactly like that, but, that's what I would be looking for here, in terms of a new high. Now, that's more than 2 ATRs, above where it is right now. But again, the challenge trigger is looking for what? It's looking for a trend signal. Is there going to be a trend emerging, a strong trend emerging? And, that's what we're seeing, right? And so, who am I to say, well, the trend has to end right here? There's no real sign of that. That's just kind of like looking at Bank of America and, a week and a half ago and going, well, the trend has to end right here. Look at this resistance mark, and look at this resistance mark, and look at this resistance. Nonsense, meaningless, right? And the stock has just continued to, mount on higher into a new, multi-year high? If we pull up the monthly on Bank of America, we're talking about a multi-year high, and you're talking about a monthly chart, weekly chart, long-term charts where there's some major breakout on some long-term consolidations. I think it's very significant about this earnings season so far. One of to me the biggest theme of this earnings season is just seeing some of these longer-term breakouts off of long consolidations. We have some shorter-term ones like Microsoft. Getting a pop here today on the news that they won a contract over Amazon when it came to the cloud, but we're looking at a nice little breakout. It's not the same thing when you look at the weekly chart. We're not talking about as long term of a consolidation, but we're still talking about a pretty decent consolidation and a pretty nice breakout in play right here. Thanks for hopping on. Have yourselves a fantastic day. I'll be back on with you here this afternoon, and we'll talk to you then. Take care.